Ladies and gentlemen,
The most transformative sport event on earth is about to begin.
Those who are in the stadium are on their feet.
It's just a long, niggly climb.
Because it is desperation now. And there it is.
Gold! What a result! Another remarkable athlete about to write another chapter in Paralympic history.
Quiet, please. Hey.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jaracz, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
In the Paralympic intro at the very end where he goes, "Hey, I always feel personally attacked."
Oh, it's play.
I know, but I always hear it as, "Hey, like, quiet, please, you." It's like, but I'm doing a podcast. I can't be quiet. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Gold ball. Always fun. I have a follow-up from last week.
As do I.
Okay. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, let me go first.
Yes.
So we mentioned Roy and HG.
Yes.
And found out not their real names.
Right.
Right. So it's Greg Pickhaver, who is H.G. Nelson, and John Doyle as Rampagin Roy Slavin. But in all the articles I read, except for the one that I found after we did the show, they presented it as if they were their names. So I'm not sure if it's kind of like they're always used stage names or if it's like Pee Wee Herman, where it's just an accepted that it's not his real name, but anyway,
Right.
I just wanted
like
to make that correction.
The characters are there. You have unleashed a beast with Roy and HG. I have done so much watching of the Dream and
Pretty
the Ice
fun.
Dream and the Russian Revolution, which is Sochi 2014, of which I posted on our Facebook group because I found precedents for toilet talk. That's all I will say about Sochi, is that there was toilet talk in Sochi and on Roy and HG's Russian Revolution show. And all of our toilet talk from Paris, there's some history there. So we are not alone in understanding.
I was just grateful that at the Boston Figure Skating World Championships, there was no bathroom issues. So grateful. Didn't drop anything in the toilet, didn't get locked in. Everything was just very normal for me. So very relieved we did not have to revive the segment for that
Right.
show.
But I do have a beef with,
No.
I don't even know if we can call him a friend of the show anymore. And that is Ben Waterworth from Off the Podium. Why he did not tell us about Roy and HG before. I'm so upset. I mean, I
Is
wouldn't
he
be
too-
binging.
Is he too young to remember?
No, because he remembered that. This sounds like it's right up Ben's alley. Come on. And when we said we were doing Sydney, he probably should have said, "Oh, have you seen Roy and HG?" Because they seem to have been a big hit in Sydney, made a big impact, enough of an impact to exist in future Olympics. They have a podcast. They had podcasts during Paris, I believe, but I can't get to them because I'm not in the right region. So a lot of it seems to be dedicated just to the Australian market, to which I say pshaw, because there are other people in the world who love Roy and HG just as much and get that humor. So please share. But Ben Waterworth, I have no words for you right now. It's on. Oh, speaking of content you didn't know existed, if you are a member of our Patreon, and that's all levels, and you can even sign up for Patreon and not pay anything. It's just another place where we can put some content. We do special content for non-paying members of the show from time to time. And if you've been waiting for the latest episode of that content, it's coming. I just had to record an intro and outro and put that on. But yes, producer Brenda and I saw the movie September 5th, and we had a nice conversation about it. So I've got that episode ready to go, and it will be up on our Patreon site relatively soon. That will be patreon.com/flamealivepod. So look for that to show up in your feeds.
And if you've ever wondered what my handwriting looks like, if you're a patron, you would have seen it.
That's true. Alison shared some notebook pages, I thought that was cool. That's a fun insight to have.
I had to be very careful with which pictures of my notebook I posted. I'm already banned in several countries. But patrons,
yeah,
you get to see the good stuff.
Excellent. So, yes, that's patreon.com/flamealivepod. Okay, today we are talking with three-time Paralympian Sergeant First Class Elizabeth Marks. Elizabeth is a swimmer who's one of the first Paralympians to be in the U.S. Army's World Class Athlete program, and to be a Paralympian in that program is a big honor as well. She competed at Rio 2016, Tokyo 2020, Paris 2024. All told, she has won 2 golds, 6 silvers, and 2 bronze medals. She's also competed in the 2016 Invictus Games, won 4 gold medals there. In 2016, she was named the recipient of the Pat Tillman Award at that year's ESPY Awards. Along with her own swimming and being part of the Army, she is a mentor and informal coach to others. Elizabeth is a fascinating woman, I will say. I've really enjoyed talking with her and getting a different perspective on what it's like to be an elite level athlete. We talked with her on November 26, 2024, and are excited to share our conversation with you now. Take a listen. Elizabeth Marks, thank you so much for joining us. What was your relationship with swimming before your injury in Iraq?
I knew how to swim. I grew up in Arizona. It was recreational. And I thought I was a pretty good swimmer until I actually learned how to swim.
When you were doing your rehab, was that when you first really learned how to swim?
Yes, I was trying to remain fit for duty, and I went to the pool, and there was a very nice woman there who taught me how to swim and offered to help me write practices and train me. And along that journey, I met a master sergeant who was getting ready for Warrior Games, and that kind of became how I fell in love with swimming.
How long did it take to realize that you were competitive?
I'm not sure that I am competitive. I love swimming. It's therapy for me. It's a celebration of life that I get to have almost every day, and it was a happy accident. So Warrior Games was put in front of me, and they said, "Would you like to enter into all the races?" And I said yes, and we tried it, and I had fun, and I did pretty well at my first Warrior Games, and it wasn't doing well that made me hooked. It was the environment and putting my body in a new challenging situation that I could control.
Do you think of yourself as a competitive person, though?
Absolutely not. I am not a very competitive person. I enjoy competition for probably all of the reasons other than medals.
Was the Warrior Games how you learned about the World Class Athlete program?
It is not. No, I was in the Warrior Transition Battalion, as it was called at the time, and I had a friend who was a very talented athlete, and he was being recruited to the World Class Athlete program. And I asked about it, and I asked for a pamphlet, and I found out that their headquarters were in San Antonio, and I was stationed in San Antonio. So I sought out their headquarters and let myself in and met a gentleman named Mr. Tennis, who then educated me on how to properly get into the program.
And how do you properly get into the program?
The World Class Athlete program has all of the benchmarks in order to enter the program listed online, but essentially you have to be a world class athlete, be able to make a national time standard in whatever your respective sport is, and then submit an application to the World Class Athlete program to be accepted.
What kind of things do they ask on the application program? Like, do you have to write essays or things like that?
When I wrote my application, I'm not sure if it's changed. I could pull it up, but it was reaching that benchmark of a national team entry standard. And then I also included a cover letter of intent and trying to, I guess, like an abbreviated resume of what I had done as a soldier, what I intended to do as a soldier, how I thought this program could help me, and how honored I would be to be a part of this program.
So you were the first female Paralympian. Do I have that correct?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So what kinds of things did they have to do to the program to accommodate for you? Or were you having to accommodate to the program?
I believe the military is incredibly unique in that a soldier is a soldier. And they were already very prepared for me in that an athlete is an athlete, Paralympic or Olympic. And so they opened the door and they said, "How can I support you?" And it was much like supporting any other athlete. I just have a longer medical history.
You were saying how the Army adjusts to you as an athlete Paralympian. What kind of supports are they giving you?
Well, every sport is unique. Everyone has a different amount of requirements in order to be eligible for games. And that is across the board. Any independent sport and their national governing body is going to be different. And so they just make sure to be aware and knowledgeable on the topic. We communicate frequently what has to be done to be able to meet certain benchmarks to hopefully achieve a world's or games team. And so it's pretty straightforward.
So let's talk about the differences between able-bodied swimming and your version, because obviously, depending on disability, everyone's version of swimming is a little different. So, what does your stroke and your kick and your breathing all look like, say, just for freestyle?
Goodness, that's quite the breakdown. I think swimming, no matter what body you're in, is independent to that person who's performing that task. I happen to be an amputee. I do have multiple brain injuries, a lung injury, and some other orthopedic injuries, neurological injury, but no two human bodies are the same. And so I would say in freestyle, everyone has a different mechanism that they're working with, and each is unique. So I don't know how to compare mine to anyone else's.
I saw a quote where you were talking about how intellectual swimming is. And I thought that was really interesting because swimming is one of those sports that we don't think of as being a thinking sport in many ways. So I'm curious to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think it's a lot of time alone with your own thoughts. And so it's curious because at first it's very difficult and you're just trying to get, or for myself, I should say, I'm just trying to get down the mechanics and it's all this hard work. And it almost feels like the harder you try, the slower you go with swimming. And that's why it feels so intellectual to me because you have to work with the water. You have to be very open to moving your body in efficient ways that aren't always natural. You also have to be open to changing your what you would normally do or your muscle memory would be. Even as I age or as my injuries progress, it changes all the time. And so it's very intellectual in that you have to be flexible, you have to be open, you can't lean back on what maybe worked the last quad. It's always developing and changing, and it's very exciting.
Speaking of changing, between Rio and Tokyo, your body changed a lot because of the amputation. So how did that change where your power comes from, how you balance in the water and things like that?
Absolutely. So my injuries were progressive, of course. And after amputation, there wasn't a lot of difference because I didn't get much power from that part of my body already. And because I did have chronic health issues, I started feeling a lot better. My energy was a lot better. My balance was a little bit different in the water, just the buoyancy. But overall, it wasn't a huge change for me because I was so used to and had learned how to swim in an already injured body that it wasn't that difficult to change up how we were swimming.
You did have to go through reclassification. How was that process for you?
Reclassification is always hard for everybody, I think, especially because when I first got injured, all I wanted to do was be found fit for duty in the Army, and I accomplished that task. And we work really hard to be well, and we work really hard to overcome. And it was hard for me for a long time to realize that maybe I wasn't doing as well physically as I thought I was. On paper, I look a little bit different than in person because we try so hard to be well. And I am well, and my body is amazing, and I'm grateful to live in it. It is hard, though, when from the top down you're looked at and people properly evaluate you, and professionals let you know where you fall on a sliding scale. And it's hard. It's hard for your ego. It's hard to have that number, but it's also an honor because I look at the women that I race against, the S6 classification, and how strong and how fierce they are. And I realize that it's a wonderful, beautiful thing to be the classification I am. So it's hard, but in perspective, it's amazing.
Given the progressive nature of some of your disabilities, will you continue to need to be reclassified?
Because I do have brain injuries, I will every 2 years. That is just standard for neurological injuries. As far as I understand, in swimming, every 2 years they reclassify, and that is currently how the system operates.
What do people not understand with neurological injuries and how that affects training and maybe how you feel on a different day or what you can and can't do in the water on any given basis?
I don't know. I don't feel comfortable speaking for other people. I know before I had a neurological injury, I did not understand cognitive interference. I did not understand balance or proprioception issues. I've learned a lot by having a brain injury, and I've learned a lot by living in this body, but I don't know what other people do or do not know.
One of the other things with the amputation is the fact that you have an assist with the start. So, what are the rules around what you can and can't do, or what that assistant can and can't do to help you start appropriately?
Sorry, that was my cat in the background. Uh, so for the start, it is a safety measure for me, and it's majorly because I don't have all of the strength in that right leg that I am trying to push off with. And so it's not very safe for me to do that without someone just making sure I don't take off the wrong side of the block. And so they are not allowed to assist you in any forward progress. They're there for safety and to enable you to do an appropriate and proper safe block start.
Now, are you choosing that assistant or is that assigned to you?
Usually, the athlete chooses their assistant. Sometimes, because the nature of life, that person might be busy. And so, usually, I have a backup in mind. And if that backup isn't there, then it's anyone who's really willing to help me, because that's what they're doing at the end of the day, is making sure that I can race.
So, what are you telling that person who's never assisted you before what they need to do?
I absolutely practice with them first, because that is cruel to make someone do that with no practice. I feel like that and tapping would be very scary. And so it's essentially, I have two different starts. One where they do not physically touch me at all, which is the one I used in Paris. They're just there to make sure if I tilt off either side, they can put pressure on that hip so that I stay in line. And then the other one is where I'm physically helped to stand up and not fall off the front of the block. And so then they would hook their fingers in front of my hip bone so that I don't list off the front of the block before the start happens. And all they do is pull their hands away when the buzzer or whatever the starting sound of the day is.
You mentioned tapping. How do you use a tapper?
Oh, goodness. We sword fight with them. No. Well, the tapper assists me in not hitting the wall because of brain injuries and because of lung injuries. I have a lot of issue with disorientation as well as loss of vision. And so it's a safety measure for me because last thing I want to do is send my head into the wall. So the tapper I will practice with often. My husband is my usual tapper, and he is amazing at coaching other people how to use it, a lot better than me. And so we spend a lot of time with him and with another coach, helping them to feel comfortable about one stroke out from the wall. So I know when to strike the wall, or about a stroke and a half, two strokes away from the wall if I'm doing a turn.
What do you think when you feel that tap?
It's jarring every time. It's never not jarring. If you were to close your eyes or spin around in a circle a bunch of times until you're dizzy and then have somebody tap you on the head with a foam thing, it's disorienting. So it's kind of jarring. I kind of flinch every time I get tapped. But it's also a relief because at a certain stroke count, you start premeditating it and thinking, oh no, I hope they didn't miss the tap.
I was going to ask if you count your strokes as well and have like, okay, it's coming going through your head.
I do. I try to. Sometimes I get too excited and I forget.
You talked a little bit about disorientation, and I'm curious because you do both backstroke and breast and free. And is one more or less disorienting than the other?
Breaststroke is probably the least for me. You get a lot more breaths, and I'm using both of my arms and legs simultaneously. And so it's not as disorienting for me. Backstroke is getting better, and the enticing nature of being able to breathe the whole time has made it a lot better. Freestyle is one of the hardest because of using the appendages independently and how quickly my turnover has to be because I am not a large human. That one is definitely the hardest.
You mentioned that your husband is also your tapper and also your coach. How do you separate coach and husband? And how does he separate student and wife?
I think we are both just so grateful to get to share that space. We get along really well, we communicate very effectively, and swimming is fun. Swimming is play, swimming is joy. So there's not a lot of stress associated with it. There is always sports hard and emotions get high, but never with one another. Because at the end of the day, we've agreed this is a celebration that we get to share with our favorite person. And so he is an amazing coach who doesn't put any pressure on me. He thinks I'm the best athlete in the world. And I love that he's wrong. But I love that he feels that way because it makes me feel a little bit more confident in myself too. And I'm not very competitive. So we both find fun ways to quantify what we're doing in the pool. So it's been an adventure. We didn't know how it was going to go at first. It was born of necessity. He's always been a natural leader and he's always been very patient. And so for the first 6 months was our experiment phase with him being on deck and coaching. And he took to it and other athletes took to him. And he is shining in that environment. And I'm so grateful that he's on my team.
I would totally fail at that, especially because he's got that tapper role, to not be cheering. So when he's standing there, but he has a job to do.
He does mention how hard that is. On the inside, he's screaming, and he is a very extroverted, loud, joyous person. So it is a good exercise for him because I'm sure it's very difficult. He's told me multiple times that exact sentiment. You know, he'll catch himself getting excited and having to calm down.
How does not being competitive help you, or is a disadvantage when it comes to racing? Like, does it make you more chill?
I don't know. I'm sure there's an advantage to that anxiety that most people experience. I'm a little envious of that. I see the energy and you feel it from other people when they're getting ready to race. I've been a combat medic for 16 years, and so racing is fun and happy. And so I have had to put it into a different box. Swimming and that competitive edge for me is mostly just wanting to show up and do the best I can for the women next to me because they deserve that. They deserve that pressure. They deserve that dedication. And I look at all of us as kind of teammates. Anyone lane 1 through 8, we are the only people experiencing that moment and showing up for each other and making it a team sport in my mind has helped with the competitive nature that I don't have.
You started in Rio. What was that experience like for you?
Rio was overwhelming. It was culture shock for me. I have this wonderful support system with the World Class Athlete Program, full of seasoned athletes who help mentor me and teach me what it meant to be an athlete and how to become an athlete. And I was so excited that I got to show this program that choosing me and letting me be there was the right choice. And all I wanted to do was perform well. I was used to a culture of support and I was used to warrior games where when you beat each other, you celebrate with each other and everyone wants everyone to succeed. So I was blissfully ignorant to the world of professional sports, which I truly believe could be that way. But immediately in my first games was not so much that way. It was intense. People were a lot different than what I was used to. I had a hard time being in that environment. I became very reserved. I was pretty depressed. It was a completely different experience than I thought it was going to be. I also have survival guilt and PTSD. And so sometimes doing well doesn't feel very good. And when I was successful at games, I got a gold and a bronze medal. I had a lot of self-confidence issue and a lot of guilt associated with that success that was then compounded by how I was treated by some people, and I almost quit swimming. So Rio was really hard for me. It was wonderful, and I had a lot of great teammates that were powerfully motivating and in my corner, but such a juxtaposition of also guilt and a little bit of turmoil around those games. So it was very hard, very emotional for me.
How did you deal with the guilt? Like, what kind of things did you actively do to work on not feeling as guilty or being okay with having success?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of my real success in life has been repurposing pain. And so I repurposed pain in the pool to be able to swim fast and try my best. And I repurposed the pain of guilt by giving back to my community and trying to advocate for other service members who might have experienced similar things, or open doors that I felt were closed to me when I initially tried to become an athlete, or share the healing power of adaptive sports with service members, regardless of their status, whether they're active duty, veterans, doesn't matter what branch of service. And they have helped me to get over that guilt. It always lives in you. But in order to repurpose that emotion, I think giving to others and trying to spread this beautiful thing of adaptive sports in my community and advocate for people to have access has helped me to at least give it a purpose.
How was coming back to swimming after that to get ready for Tokyo?
It was good. I had a very close friend who noticed when people would congratulate me, I would kind of shrink, who noticed that when I was visible all of a sudden after wanting to be invisible, how uncomfortable I was. And he pulled me aside and we had a long conversation. I went back to having a wonderful sports psych and a wonderful regular psych who helped me with that. And emotionally repurposing that is what brought me back to swimming. And it was just as simple as, do you love swimming? Yes. Do you think you deserve a space in swimming? I don't know. Well, do you think your service members deserve space in swimming? Yes. Well, then I guess I do too. So that helped me.
So you're coming back, you're getting ready for Tokyo, and then hi COVID, and it's postponed. So how did you manage that situation?
My life has been a series of happy accidents. And so I didn't feel any differently about that. Life happens. Life happens. Sport is a privilege. And we got to be creative and do some home workouts. And I was still, active duty as a service member. So we still had other obligations. And it was hardest to watch my teammates go through that experience than going through it myself, because I know for a lot of people they had to put their lives on hold and it was really hard for them. And so I felt bad for that. But for me, it wasn't too much of an adjustment.
And you go to Tokyo and you got to do one of my favorite things, which is get a full set of medals. You did a little better than in Rio. You came back with 3. So was it easier the second time around?
They're all so different. It was interesting. We had our COVID test every morning. There was a lot more work on the front end to get over there. There were no spectators. So there was a lot of different things happening. And my classification, since we've already brought it up, falls on odd years usually. So 2021, I was reclassified or going through my classification just months before trials. And so that was more stressful than games. I love a crowd, but I also did not mind having not a crowd. And I think that was really hard for some of my competition because they feed off that energy. And I don't know what that's like because I kind of go into tunnel vision. And so it was a unique experience. They're all so different though. I think I was more prepared for what it meant to be in that environment. And so that part was easier. There wasn't as much emotional fallout for me.
Going through classification a few months ahead of time, what kind of stress did that bring on in terms of, was it the not knowing what in what class you were going to swim, that kind of thing, or what made it stressful?
It's very intense going through classification because they are so thorough. There's a physical exam and there's a water exam. And of course, they go through your medical records and it's pretty exhausting. And with COVID, opportunities to fulfill this requirement were hard to come by. And so when we got our classification slot, I was like, okay, ready, go, right? And we go, we get classified. And with a neurological issue, with the body that I live in, sure, you don't know where you'll end up on the spectrum. I think I'm doing great and I think I'm thriving and I'm going fast times, and you don't know until you know, which is stressful for me.
And then I think there's, you have this push and pull when I was reading stories about you where you need to be fit for duty, but you also need to be disabled to compete in the Paralympics. And what you're saying about I need to be doing really well, but also have these other things to be classified correctly. Does that mess with your head at all? That juxtaposition?
I'm very fortunate in that my command team is incredibly supportive. And the medical team that takes care of me in the Army is always in my corner and always helping me to succeed. They are so creative and they're so patient. And it messes with you a little bit because for me, you never want to know that you're doing worse physically. But I also want to make sure that I am being honest with how I am doing.
You talked about not needing a crowd, but in Paris, you got crowds and you got loud crowds.
We did.
So, how was that for you?
It was great. France was wonderful. The people of Paris came out and they supported. There were some crazy seats way up in the corner where all they could see was the screen, and they were full. People were there for it. They were there for the long haul. They stayed there and they stayed loud. And whenever there was a French swimmer in the water, it was insanity. So there was a crowd, and that was also great.
What was different for you in Paris? Because now you've done this a few times physically. How are you swimming?
I've gotten to know my international competition really well, and I care about these young women so much. And so this was especially exciting for me because I have gotten to watch some of these athletes improve so much over the years, and just getting to be in the water with them was so exciting. So I had a whole nother purpose. And in Rio, it was just my times and experiencing the craziness for the first time. In Tokyo, it was meeting this new classification of people and learning them and seeing what that's like. Now we've had worlds together, we've had international competitions together, and we're invested in each other's lives. And my goal for Paris was to bring the support to my competition that I feel everyone deserves. And I think I did that. So I was very proud. And this was a lot of fun. I had so much fun getting in to be in the call room. I think it's an honor to get to be a lot of their safe space. If they're emotional, they come to me. And so those are the wins that nobody gets to see.
Did you have the chocolate muffin?
Of course, of course. Multiple chocolate muffins, yes.
How was the muffin?
It was good. It was more like cake shaped muffin. Yeah. And it's chocolate cake. It's good French chocolate cake.
You've done both the 20-point relay and the 34-point relay, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so how are we putting those together?
Oh, they're so different. They're completely different things. The 34-point relay I did when I was in Rio and brand new and experiencing culture shock. And then the 20-point relay was with people that I've known for years. So it was very different. Both of them were very different.
How involved are the athletes in putting those teams together? Or is the coach just saying you, and you?
Oh no, there's a process to be selected for the relays, and it is all very factual and straightforward. And so, whomever has earned that slot on the relay is the one who will be on the relay. And in some instances, we have people who will do swim offs for the relay, where if they're very close in time in the same classification, they will swim to try to compete for that slot.
How much practice do you get to do as a team, or do you need to?
We had a training camp. We have to practice trade-offs, especially because I won't be able to see, and I need to remember what side of the block to go to be most efficient for my teammate. And in turn, we have like a boss Karimi. He will finish with his head into the wall. And because of how I sit on the block, it's very hard to see him. So their strategy with who is the most efficient person to be in that place so that our team can have its best opportunities to succeed. So we form our team a little bit differently, or at least our lineup for the relay was a little bit different than most countries. The quote fastest times aren't always on the leg you'll think they'll be with us because we're going for efficiency and safety.
So then do you have to do a lot of practice with putting people in different slots and finding those efficiencies?
We did. In our training camp, we played. Sorry, that's my cat again. So in training camp, we played with our positions to see who was most comfortable with what. And that's really what we go off of because we want to have a good time. Relay is the best time. You get to work your butt off for other people, and so it should be fun and it should be comfortable, and people should not be stressed out about what order they're going in or if that's perceived to be a slow or fast order. So we practice going off the blocks. Our S6 males were the easiest to move around in the freestyle relay because they're just so talented at those block starts. Leanne and I, we have to be a little bit more choosy about where we go in the freestyle relay.
Is that just because of how your entry works?
Yes, my entry is further back on the block, so I can't see that wall. And then, of course, Leanne, she has an in-water start. And so for the freestyle relay, she was our starting person. So even though she's our lowest classification, she started the show. And then I ended up finishing it and going off of Zach Shattuck because he's an S6 male, and it was just easier to see him come into the wall than a Boss Karimi. And then, of course, in the IM, there's a little bit less flexibility because you're all chosen for a specific stroke. So I started off that race, and Leanne was our anchor who brought it home in the freestyle.
Yeah, now I'm having horrible visions of you don't see the person in the pool.
Last thing you want to do is false start. I don't want to be that person.
Well, that's the least of what could happen, isn't it?
They would be the most mad about that, though, I think.
Sure, jump on me. It's fine, but don't lose the race.
Don't you dare false start. Yeah.
What was the experience like in Paris outside of the pool?
I was pretty busy. I had 7 races. I raced the first day and the last day and a bunch of days in between. And so outside of the pool, having my husband there for the first time was amazing. And having my command team there to support me while I raced for the first time was amazing. And so those 2 things alone really brought my energy and focus up. And then most of the time was spent resting. My teammate Hannah Aspen, she's an amazing swimmer, and she was my roommate and our team captain. And her and I honestly laid in bed at any moment we were given. So it was so cool to have such an awesome lady to be my roommate and hang out with and eat our chocolate muffins.
In the cardboard beds.
You know, they're not that bad. They're pretty comfortable.
Yes, that's what we've heard, that it's all hype.
I don't know. I thought it was fine. I mean, I weigh 120 pounds and I'm 5'5", so maybe I'm not the best judge, but I liked them.
You mentioned learning how to become an athlete. What was that process for you?
Athletics isn't something that I had spent any time in. I joined the military at 17 years old as a combat medic, and it is a team sport. The military is one giant, beautiful, eclectic team where all you want is for the person next to you to thrive. And so that part was familiar. What was unfamiliar was there's a lot of nuances in the culture of being an athlete. Being an athlete is its own culture, and one that I just was not aware of and had not been exposed to before. And so I still had on those military goggles of course, everyone wants everyone else to succeed. It's a little bit more introspective in athletics, especially in a single sport like swimming or track and field, where you are racing other people and it is just a one person team. That was really hard for me to learn. I was unfamiliar with that environment.
How were you in gym class when you were a kid?
Probably very annoying. I don't know.
No, it's so interesting to have, like, all of a sudden this is not necessarily the path you would have chosen when you were a kid, because there's a lot of kids who be like, I want to play basketball, or I want to do I want to be in the Olympics somehow, or the Paralympics, but like kind of falling into it is an interesting study in mental approaches and how you can approach things differently. And like you said, the culture is totally different.
I love training. Training is what got me hooked to being a swimmer. I like competing. I'm learning to love parts of it, and I'm learning that it's okay to love parts that maybe other people don't. And so this just been a journey like anything else. Everyone's life takes twists and turns, and opportunities are presented, or you make opportunity for yourself. And as soon as I found out there was an opportunity to be an athlete while serving in the military, I got to keep my 2 favorite things now, my athletic pursuit and being an NCO. It just grows on you. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to grow up as being an athlete. I feel like that would be very stressful. It's a hard thing to do, to be a professional athlete and to be the best at your craft is difficult. And to grow up in that environment, I imagine would be very difficult.
Do you struggle when the games are over, kind of switching back to training and kind of regular life?
I don't. I love training. I'm always excited for the lessons learned when I do compete. And my husband and I are very excited to implement those lessons that we get to learn. And going back to regular life and being with the World Class Athlete Program and being an NCO, I love my job. I love the community I serve. I love all of those things. So I'm always excited for the experience. And when it's over, it gives me a lot of fresh new things to think about and implement. And then I'm excited for the next journey.
What's next for you competitively?
I don't know. I am up again. My 2 years will be next year for classification. And so I will definitely be at that competition. And I don't know. I don't know what's next. Hopefully, I am able to do some national meets and do some outreach. My hope for this year is to take care of some medical issues that I have been putting off and to kind of do a reset and to give my professional career in the military some attention. And most excitingly, the Warrior Games are coming back to Colorado Springs in the summer of 2025. And so getting to go there and mentor and cheer on all of the service members and veterans who are healing through sport. So this next year will be mostly about refocusing, readjusting, and then whatever competitions happen to line up with that.
What sort of lessons did you learn at Paris that you want to implement in training going forward?
A couple of the lessons that I learned in Paris is that I get bored sometimes in a call room. So I need to work on spending extended amounts of time waiting to race. And so sometimes that just looks like warming up, hopping out of the pool, maybe giving myself an extra 5 minutes before I get into a set, just so I make sure that I know what that feeling is like. I am very patient usually, but it gets harder the more races you do. So I did definitely learn that about myself. I also learned that 7 races is a lot of racing in 10 days, especially if you factor in if you're fortunate enough to have a medal ceremony, which I'm very fortunate. I got to have 5. It's exhausting. It is so, they are long, long days. So I need to maybe do some editing.
What is the medal ceremony process like? You finish your race, you get out of the pool, you know you have a podium coming. What happens in that process?
It's heavily dependent on the run of show. And so, depending where your race falls, it's either you get out of the pool, you go through Media Alley real quick, and then you throw on your uniform for the ceremony, and then you go straight there, and then you walk out to a podium, and it's very whirlwind. Or you're fortunate, and maybe you fall a little bit earlier in the schedule. So, you'll have time to get your speed suit off and get ready for that podium. I'll share a very unique and fun experience that I got to have. I swam the 2 IM and the 20-point freestyle relay in the same day. And we medaled in both events. And between the 200 IM swimming it, I was also tagged by USADA. And so I went straight from the pool to drug testing and straight from drug testing to try to shimmy my swimsuit back on, made it to the podium, and straight from that podium to the call room for the 20-point relay, swam the 20-point freestyle relay, and then we went straight from there because it was the last event to the podium, and then I finally got to take that speed suit off. It's it can be a little bit difficult.
Okay, because I have heard that those speed suits can take up to half an hour to get into and out of.
Oh yes, my knuckles were very blistered, but we did it.
You just want to look at the USADA guy and go, seriously, can you just wait an hour, please?
Well, they will wait for you, so it's a little bit my fault, but I did have to use the restroom. So things just line up how they line up sometimes.
Oh, do you ever worry about cooling down in that kind of process? Like when you're ready, you got to hop back in for the relay. Do you have any time to warm up again?
So sometimes yes and sometimes no. And my coach Mason is very good about implementing that into training. We're very familiar with that. Being my third games, it isn't the first time he as a coach or myself as an athlete has had to be comfortable and confident in situations where you can't, because a lot of times those things are interrupted and you can't warm up all the way, you can't cool down. And because I do require tappers, a lot of my warm up is going to be dry land as opposed to in the pool, just because I will need two coaches, and sometimes there's not two coaches available. So it's trial and error and being comfortable and confident in what you know you can do.
And getting your speed suit back on.
That's the hope.
Honestly, that would be a warm up in and of itself.
It was. I was very sweaty. I made it to the call room and I wheeled in there, and Leanne was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Good now, ready to go."
How are the Invictus Games? What are they like?
The Invictus Games are great. They're much like the Warrior Games. We just get to also celebrate with our allied nations. So it's ill, sick, injured, and wounded from all over the world. And Mason and I have had the honor of getting to coach the Ukrainian team and the Colombian team at Invictus Games. Swimming at Invictus Games in 2016 was a great celebration prior to 2016 games for me, because they're my family. They're my hype team. They believe in me way more than I believe in myself. And so the Invictus Games is a bunch of service members who get to celebrate ability through sport. And I love that it's championed by so many. I love that it's affecting so many lives. And I love that other countries who maybe don't have the support that we do are getting the visibility that they deserve and the support that they deserve.
What has changed in your swimming because you've put that coaching cap on?
I feel like I'm more of a mentor than a coach. I just like to fill in when people maybe don't have anybody. So if somebody wants to have some lessons learned from me, I definitely don't consider myself a full-time coach, because I'm not. I just try to bridge that gap for people who maybe don't have access to things that I can help them with in real time. For instance, at Invictus Games, we never go there intending to coach anyone. Sometimes countries just don't have a coach or someone to do those coaching duties for them. And so, thanks to Fisher House Foundation, we're there, we're supporting, we're mentoring, we're advocating, and we just so happen to have a skill set that has been able to be used a couple of times.
When you work with people who have been injured and they're trying to figure out what to do next, what's their reaction when they get into the water, perhaps, and see what they are capable of doing?
Some people thrive. I have someone who's a standout for me is Mike Murphy. He's a very talented cyclist now. He's visually impaired. And I used to get to help him in the pool at Fort Carson often. And he is just so naturally talented. I'm so jealous. He just picked everything up and he's thriving with it and he loves it and he's a great talent. And then I have some who are transitioning and learning how to be in their new bodies, and they'll cuss me out because they hate swimming, and that's okay too. It's different, but no matter what, there's some emotional expenditure, whether they're like, "This is awful, I hate it here." Well, we learned something. No one ever walks away not learning something.
I know you said you don't know what's next, but I'm curious as to, I know, and you were saying before how you love all the happy accidents. So I have a feeling I know the answer already. But if you had control over it, what would you choose?
My favorite thing to do is to champion others. And selfishly, it brings me so much joy. And so, any way that I can bring value to the World Class Athlete Program, to the Army, to my brothers and sisters in the military, and to the people in the disabled community that I get to be a part of, that's my favorite choice, is to be involved, advocate, say the truth, be the truth, and show up for people, because people showed up for me. Was that your guess? Is that what you guessed?
That is not what I guessed at all. So thank you for proving me
What did
wrong,
you
Ellie
guess? You
Marks.
don't need to know.
I thought you were going to tell me, I don't know. I just want to see what happens. That's the fun part.
Oh, I'm comfortable in chaos, but I do love some structure.
You are in the military after all.
For quite some time. Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant First Class Marks, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. On Instagram, she is at Miss_Ann with an E_Marks. And you can find out more about the World Class Athlete Program at goarmy.com and armywcap.com.
Accende la fiamma.
Ooh, we have torches. We have torches.
We have torches.
You have a tone. We have torches. You have a tone. What's going on?
Well, let's explain the torches first. So the design is called Essential, which is a tribute to their minimalism. It was designed by Studio Carlo Ratti Associati and designed and produced by Cavana Group Reflective. It is a very reflective surface. When you look at those first pictures that I posted and then watch the video, you will have a very different opinion on how they look.
Okay.
This I thought was kind of cool. The finish is made with a unique physical vapor deposition technology. It sounds cool. And the color is constantly changing in different light. The Olympic blue-green is called Shades of Sky, and the Paralympic bronze color is called Mountains of Light. And the very narrow, very simplistic design is meant to highlight the flame. In the pictures, I did not see this part, but apparently there's a section where you can see the inner components of the torch. Did you see that in the pictures?
It looks like there is a little panel down the
Yes.
side that you can see, but they didn't light it up, which bummed me out. But I think, well, we have no Olympic flame yet, so you can't use the torch. But you did test that. Come on, you had to test this.
Yeah, but they're not going to photograph it yet.
No.
So it's made from recycled aluminum and brass alloy. It will use a bio-LPG fuel made from cooking oil, animal fats, and residues from agriculture. They made a big deal about the sustainability of these torches, and each torch can be refilled up to 10 times and reused. So there won't be as many torches produced as in previous Olympics relays.
Collectors take note. Because I already saw Michael Payne is very excited to add the torch to his collection.
So people are really, again, and this happens every time. People are very split. This is a very divisive design, it seems like. Some people said, I love some of the comments on Instagram, you're Italian, you can do better than this.
Ooh.
That, Italians created the Renaissance and gave us Baroque art, and you gave us a vape pen.
Wow.
My first thought when I looked at it is that it looked like a pen, like something Bic produced.
Odd, since Bic's a French country.
But just that was my immediate thought, thinking, oh, it looks like a Bic special pen. But then I thought, oh, merchandising option, they are going to have torch pens, which I will happily take. And it does look much better in motion than it does in the photograph. What disappoints me the most is it doesn't feel like it ties into the pictograms. Remember, the pictograms had that motion quality to them. I said they were all swoopy, and it looked like the breeze was flowing through it. And this didn't have that.
No, it is very minimalistic. It looks more, I mean, it's got the logo on it, so it's got that 2-6 that's very minimalist futuro look, and I think this echoes that a little bit.
The color threw me also because all the pictograms are white and the logo is mostly white, and then you have these very vibrant colored torches. So I'm slightly concerned about the unity of their design concept.
Well, and I just pulled up the press release. The Olympics logo is white and the Paralympics logo is multicolored. So you have a blue-green torch for the Olympics, and you have, which I guess you can then see the white logo, but then you have this multicolored logo going on a bronze. Well, it's probably not even on there. No, it's just all white on the logo. But you make the Paralympic one a neutral color, let's say. It's bronze, but it's a neutral color compared to a vibrant blue-green.
It feels like the colors should have been swapped. Like the
Mhm.
blue-green would have made more sense with the Paralympics in that the logo has some blue and green in it. We come off of Tokyo and even Paris, who had such unification in their design concepts. Everything fit together. Everything built off one another. And Italy, that you would expect to just be the pinnacle of design, is disappointing me a little bit. But please let us know what you think of the torch.
Oh, well, okay. I have two very separate things. Let me go back to the torches because I have something else that I noticed that really excited me in the announcement of them. First off, when you look at the colors of the torches and you read the big, very in-depth design meaning behind every element of these torches, there's more meaning infused into these torches than there is detail in the torch. Well, the torches are long, I will say that. They're much longer than the Paris torches. So the colors of the torches celebrate the bond between humans and nature, sport, and the future. The Olympic torch lights up with shades of sky, inspired by Italy's ever-changing landscape, a color that speaks of movement, hope, and transformation. The Paralympic torch glows with mountains of light, honoring the inner strength of Paralympic athletes and the power of their courage to reshape the world. It's the inspirational Paralympic athlete trope that they are tired of too. I mean, Olympians aren't inspirational and they don't have inner strength.
Yeah.
That bothers me that we're still on the inspiration porn, so to speak, of Paralympic athletes, and we can't just celebrate their athletic abilities, that they have to be the ones to carry the mark of inspiration in everything that they do. So that ticked me off. But the one thing I was very excited about was, did you watch the video?
Yes.
Those jackets, that baby.
They were different. They were not what the Italian team usually wears.
No, so I know Baby Vio was one of the people at one of the unveilings because they unveiled them here and then they unveiled them in Osaka at Expo 2025. So Baby Vio and then Stefania Belmondo did them in Milano, and Martina Caroni and Carolina Kostner unveiled them in Osaka. They wore these hoodies, zip-up hoodies, that were navy, and then down the center was a panel of the red, white, and green of Italian flag, and it was like this heavy mesh, and it was cool looking, and I want one of those.
Let's see what we can do.
All right, that was the most exciting thing about the torches. I don't think they're bad. They're minimalist. Maybe they'll look really cool with the flame, and maybe they'll look cool while running. And I think the technology sounds very cool. I think when they're lit and we see the inner workings, that will be very cool, and we'll get really excited about that. But right now, it's a torch.
If you see a pen set, though, please get that for me for Christmas.
Okay.
Do we have another chapter of the sliding novella?
No, not really. A story from the Associated Press that, they've increased the budget again. The organizing committee of Milan-Cortina has. So in March 2024, last year, they said the lifetime budget is going to be 1.5 billion euros. So now that has been increased to 1.7 billion euros. But let's conveniently not include in your final totals for these games 118 million for the sliding center, because that's being taken care of by government stuff, and 300 million for the ice hockey arena in Milan because it's a brand new structure. And then there's also going to be big infrastructure projects for roads and railways that will be taken care of that's in the government's budget as well. So if you included the two venues that they are building for these games, we're at 2.118 billion euros. And they're always going to compare to other games. Sochi is always going to be the one that sticks out because it was $51 billion.
That we know about.
Yes. And Beijing, they estimate at $4 billion. And Beijing did build a big air venue. They built a ski jumping, I think.
Yes.
And they built a long track speed skating rink. You're not that far away from Beijing, to be quite honest, with all the building that they did. I don't think that's the last we're going to hear about a budget increase.
No, this is Italy.
Right.
And we keep hearing this, and we've talked about the Paris budget, and we've talked previously about some, Sochi and Beijing. What's the real number? What did these really cost? And they play all these games of, well, the government paid for this, or we built a railway and now you have a railway. So it's very hard. We have to wait for the economists to kind of do this back end analysis to get some real numbers. So we don't really know what things cost until a few years after, when somebody from outside comes in and does forensic accounting and pulls it all together. And we've got to stop playing these games and just be straight with the public, be straight with these cities who are bidding, and say, this is what it's going to cost. Yeah, you're going to get benefits from it. Please stop playing games.
Right. On a happier note, the games are going to have an official Paralympic documentary. So we always had the Olympic movie. Now we have an official Paralympic movie. The organizing committee has signed an agreement with the creators of Rising Phoenix to produce a long form documentary and other content. Before the games, there's going to be a social media series following athletes on the road to 2026. There's going to be a season of Rising Phoenix, What Does It Take? The podcast. And then after the games, there's going to be the long form documentary that we know from the Olympic side. So that's going to be very exciting. And I didn't realize this is the 50th anniversary of the first Winter Paralympics.
Well, the Rising Phoenix people have produced such high quality material related to Paralympians. So that's, oh, you're going to make a movie? Oh, but the Rising Phoenix people are doing it. Oh, good.
They're in good hands.
Going back to your comment before about inspiration porn, we're good. Oh my goodness, so much LA news. And if you are confused, listener, you are in good hands with Jill, because I am so confused and overwhelmed that I am counting on Jill to explain this to me.
All right. They announced the athletes quota, the medal events, and then we've got where the new events are going to add athletes. And then we also have a lot of venue announcements too, because they made a whole bunch of changes to venues and they finalized some other ones. So there's going to be 351 medal events. There were 329 in Paris. So a lot more events, but we are going to have the same basic athlete quota, 10,500. Okay, you just talked about the accounting. They do the same fuzzy math with the athlete quotas too. So they're all excited. We're going to meet the athlete quota, 10,500, except for we're going to also have 698 athletes to cover our 5 new sports that we negotiated to put on the program. So baseball, softball, cricket, flag football, lacrosse, and squash. Not a lot of athletes. I was surprised at how few athletes they were adding.
Considering those are all team sports.
Yes, with the exception of squash. But we'll get to squash. A number of changes got made to the schedule as well. So for football, the women's competition got expanded to 16 teams. On the men's side, they're shrinking it down to 12 teams. And so that's flipped from Paris 2024. This is with FIFA's blessing.
Yes.
I'd love to know those conversations, because I would not be surprised if FIFA went, oh, you want to shrink the men's tournament? Fine. Because it's already an under 23 for the most part. So you don't have a ton of people. People still get excited about Olympic football because it's football, but that puts more emphasis on the World Cup.
Right, because you're going to see even fewer of those big stars. You know, they usually allow you to have 1 or 2 overaged stars in the men's tournament. And also FIFA's smart in the sense of now you can really highlight also the women's stars in certain areas of the world. In LA, the US women, come on.
Right.
So let's put more emphasis on the women's tournament.
And will FIFA put less emphasis on the Women's World Cup then? If they want the Olympic tournament to be the big dog comparatively, even with an expanded women's competition, you're still with half of the number of teams that are in a World Cup. So it's bigger, but football is still kind of downplayed for the Olympics. It'll be interesting to see, because with the changes in quotas, there's going to be more women than men at these Olympics. So that's getting touted as well. And we've had some discussion on the Facebook group about how don't love that idea. For some people would like equality more so than more women than men.
And a lot of people were asking how that math happened. And I think it's these team sports that up to the number of women's teams. And then you still have other sports that keep the same quota numbers. So again, fuzzy math, and not sure if that really, again, when we talk to Dr. Donnelly about equality versus equity versus parity, is the money going to the women's sports? Are they being highlighted or not even highlighted? Are they being treated equally? Well, we'll see as we go along.
Boxing is going to have one more weight class for women. So now we will have 7 classes for both men and women. What I don't understand there is, are the numbers of participants fewer overall? So did every weight class lose a couple of people? We'll look into that. In water polo, the women's tournament expanded from 10 to 12 teams. The men's will stay 12 teams. So now we're on equal playing fields there. 3x3, both men's and women's tournaments are expanding from 8 teams to 12 teams. I'm very excited about that.
I love this. 3x3 we loved it in person, and the crowd certainly loved it. It is so different than 5-on-5. That it
Very.
really feels like such a separate sport, and different countries are really good at it. So I really like this inclusion of a urban sport. That gets
Yes.
a lot of
Yes.
derision, but this I think is a great addition.
We will see the debut of coastal rowing. This takes the place of lightweight rowing, which made its last appearance at Paris 2024. There will be women's solo, men's solo, and then mixed doubles. Sport climbing has expanded into 3 separate medal events. So now they have finally split apart speed, boulder, and lead into their various events. New swimming events.
This has got people stoked.
And also, people weren't thrilled about it. I saw some derision over adding 50-meter events in backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly for both men and women. You are stoked?
I love a splash and dash. I saw a lot of people just being excited to have these kind of fun, fast races.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the derision?
Why do we have to add them?
Oh.
Kind of thing. Swimming gets more events. I'm excited that other stroke specialists get a 50-meter option. That was my excitement, because there's a lot of extra freestyle and not so much in the other strokes.
Give me backstroke all day.
Archery is getting an extra event. Compound bow has been added.
Oh, our very close friend, listener Meredith, is so excited about this.
You know who else was excited? TKFLASTAN man Stutzman.
Well, he loves his sport more than anything else.
We've got mixed gender team events added to artistic gymnastics. We don't have details on what that's going to be, but they're going to have a mixed team event. That will be interesting because of the different apparatuses that men's and women's have, and how do you fit them all on the same stage?
And not only just the logistics of it, but also, obviously certain countries are really good in men's and really good in women's, and it doesn't always transfer as the same country. And how do you put those teams together, and how are they going to put these events together? And who would end up being on top of those?
Right. We will also have mixed gender team events for golf, which I am excited about that. As much as we don't talk about Olympic golf very much, I'm glad that there's another event for that course. Mixed gender table tennis, and also mixed gender team archery. So I'm excited about all of the mixed gender team events. I'm excited that I just like the fact that get more events added to sports to give athletes more options and also use those venues.
Well, I love mixed gender events because you're putting men and women on this. I've said this a million times. You're putting men and women athletes on the same stage together at the same time to show, there's always that, nobody watches women's sports. We'll put them on the same team, and let me tell you something. You're going to love it.
Squash has gone down in its quota. So we were talking about where are they making all these quota spots. Squash was supposed to be 32 athletes per gender. They've gone down to 16 per gender. So they've really cut that back. And then race walk, the mixed relay is out. We're down to 1 event per gender. Not surprising. TKFLASTAN Evan Dunphy, not thrilled. And I don't blame him. It's tough to see a sport that you love. I don't blame him. It's tough to see a sport that you love get kind of pushed out. Come on, Brisbane. Don't fail us. 24 out of 31 federations have asked for changes for their program from Paris. So that's why we have 46 new events here. Interesting.
You missed the mixed gender relay.
Oh, yeah. That's
Or-
right. A 4x100 and track.
How cool is that going to be?
That's going to be very, very cool.
Oh,
Or if you're going to be a pessimist, how will the U.S. mess that up?
I'm calling GB for gold on that one.
Oh, are
now.
you?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, ooh. 3 years. Okay. Predictions have been made. All right. Qualification processes are in the works. Those should come either late this year or early next year because we're getting to that point as well. And then we have lots of venue changes. I love this. They wanted to have beach volleyball in Santa Monica because that is the birthplace of beach volleyball. Santa Monica said no. They said it's peaked tourist season. It's going to cost us $15.54 million to host beach volleyball, and that would only generate $14.09 million in revenue. If we don't host it, we'll get less revenue. We'd only get $11.3 million in tourism revenue, but that would only cost us $650,000. Beach
Can't
volleyball.
argue with that. I mean, cities have to make these choices.
Mhm.
And to be alone out there, one of the things that you're going to get to is this clumping of events. And if you're the only event out in Santa Monica, you're just not going to see the bump that you need to make it worthwhile.
Right. So beach volleyball has moved to Long Beach along with a host of other events. Equestrian moved again. So the original plan was a temporary facility in the Sepulveda Basin recreational area. Last June, they moved it out to Temecula in Riverside County, which is kind of east of LA. And that was 2 hours away from the original site. Now they've moved it again. So according to the Sports Examiner, this move to Arcadia, they're going to be at the Santa Anita Park there. That's in response to a request from OBS, the Olympic Broadcasting Services, to have all the equestrian events in one place to increase drama, reduce costs, and reduce production complexities. Obviously, out in Riverside, they were surprised. The new venue is the old venue from LA 1984. So we are going back to an LA 1984 venue for equestrian. And Rich Perlman from the Sports Examiner said in 1984, that site was too hot for cross country. So they had to move it, and they moved it down to Fairbanks Ranch, which was 2 hours south of LA. So they had to truck the horses down there and truck them back up.
I would think that heat tolerances now are much higher than they were in 84. Just because in general, the planet's getting warmer, many events are happening in higher temperatures. So I would think that both athletes, riders and horses, are acclimated to higher temperatures than they were then. So maybe it won't be a problem, I'm hoping.
Maybe. And who knows? Maybe they've also got more shaded areas. I don't know how the park itself has evolved, because hopefully it's not the same facility that it was in 1984 either. That will be interesting to see. We have a lot of clumping of venues, which
Long Beach gets a ton.
Right. So a lot of stuff in LA proper, which includes 3x3, athletics, baseball, which is going to be in Dodger Stadium. So get excited for that.
That's awesome.
Boxing. The cycling road race is going to start in Venice Beach. They'll have diving, fencing, flag football, golf, judo, lacrosse. Also, starting point for the marathon is going to be in Venice Beach. Modern pentathlon, rhythmic gymnastics, squash, which will be in the Universal Studios lot.
Do you think Harry Potter will compete?
I don't know. It would be funny if you were actually working and just showed up.
If you were like in your costume and you just
just like, oh, I got a break. Let me duck over and see some squash. Table tennis, taekwondo, triathlon, weightlifting, and wrestling. Huge number of sports in LA proper. Volleyball will be out in Anaheim, which is kind of a haul outside of LA, but also that's where Disneyland is.
Mickey is showing up to make some spikes.
Right. Arcadia will have equestrian, which is just a little north of the city. Carson will have archery, track cycling, hockey, rugby sevens, and tennis. Then Long Beach, and Carson is in between LA and Long Beach, so it's on the way. Long Beach is going to have artistic swimming, beach volleyball, canoe sprint, handball, marathon swimming, rowing and coastal rowing, sailing, shooting, sport climbing, and water polo. They'll have target shooting. Shooting's been split up into 2 venues. So target shooting is going to be at the Convention Center in Long Beach, and then shotgun shooting is going to be at the Shotgun Center in South El Monte, which is also not far away. Englewood will have basketball and swimming. Those are literally across the parking lot from each other, basically.
Yeah, when we were
Yeah.
at SoFi, we could see it.
Yeah.
And swimming in SoFi.
It's going to be amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Pasadena will have football at the Rose Bowl Stadium. I imagine those are going to be late stage matches. We don't have preliminary football venues yet. Surfing will be at San Clemente, which is kind of a little further south. That seems to be a little more out of the way.
But it's not in Tahiti.
No, it's not in Tahiti. That's a good thing. Oklahoma is going to be the one outlier venue city, and that will have canoe slalom and softball. And then we're still waiting also for the rest of the cycling road course, the mountain bike venue, and football preliminaries. So it's kind of I would say it's fairly compact given how big and spread out LA and the LA area is.
Well, it's really nice that wherever you're going to stay, you've got multiple choices.
Yeah.
You've got these clusters, and they truly are clusters. It's not like, oh, we're kind of, you can get to, if you're staying in Carson, all the venues that are in Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be there for 2 solid weeks and see something every day.
So that will be cool. The convention center is going to be hopping in Los Angeles, and also the Long Beach Convention Center will be hopping, and as will the Long Beach Convention Center lot, because they're going to put a pool in there and have artistic swimming and water polo. And sport climbing is going to be in the lot as well. So they're going to have all these stuff outside. It's going to be fun. I think, it's going to be, some of these areas are going to be like Arena Sud from Paris, where you had so much stuff going on that it could be like a little party, or like I imagine the lot in Long Beach is going to be a little like the urban park.
The Place de la Concorde.
Yes.
Where you can, and one of the things that people complained about with the Place de la Concorde is it wasn't enough of a focal point. It didn't feel enough like that party atmosphere of, say, a Centennial Park of Atlanta. So LA, use that, have music going, have events, have things happening right in that center, so that in between events that are happening, people just want to be a part of the atmosphere. I mean, that's why people go to this. That's the point. You have things together, because otherwise you're just going to a world championships.
Right. And have shade. That would be the thing. I think that was the problem with Place de la Concorde, is that there was no place to hang out. And so you were either in line at the concession stand, or you were huddled under that tiny little shade areas. But they tried. I will say that they tried.
Pas de patinage.
The Deseret News reported that for French Alps 2030, speed skating likely will not be in France, because they would have to build a rink, and they don't want to. So they are looking at Netherlands and Italy as potential backup hosts for that.
Though, holy cow, speed skating in the Netherlands.
Can you imagine that?
But isn't that far?
It would be far. It would be a plane ride, or like an overnight train if you were really lucky. But it's a hike away. And same with Italy. I don't know where they would be looking at in Italy. Maybe Milan, maybe Torino. But Milan is even a temporary venue because they're using a convention center. So where they're going to go, I'm not quite sure. But Netherlands could be cool. Like you've said, when you separate everything, it takes away a lot of the Olympic feel. That's a big sport to take away an Olympic field. But to put it in the Netherlands, that would be cool.
Welcome to TKFLASTAN.
It is a time of the show where we check in with our team, Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners who make up our very own citizenship of our very own country, TKFLASTAN.
Kenny Bednarik won both the 100-meter and 200-meter sprints at the inaugural Grand Slam track in Kingston, Jamaica.
Olya Abasolo of Chinikova is now head of athlete communications and digital activation at the International Olympic Committee.
Fencer Nick Itkin has launched the Nick Itkin Foundation to break down the financial barrier to fencing and making the sport more accessible. The foundation is offering free classes and hopes in future to fund equipment, training, and travel for kids to grow in the sport. Nick also had a little star on his epee this week. Nick also won the Division I National Championship in men's foil.
Excellent. And that will do it for this episode. Let us know what you think of all of the torch news and the venue news for LA 2028.
We do love hearing from you. You can chat with us and other listeners on our Facebook group that has been very full of opinions, and that's Keep the Flame Alive Podcast. You can email us at flamealivepod@gmail.com, and the voicemail and text line is always open at 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT. And if you need more Olympics and Paralympics in your life, and who doesn't, sign up for our newsletter at flamealivepod.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Next week, I'm so excited about this. We will be talking with Ryan Cooper from USA Cycling, who worked with the track team on a project called Project 405. Just won a major award for his work there. And we are going to hear all about how they built the strategy that helped the women's pursuit team Pursuit, to win gold at Paris 2024. If you're into cycling, if you're into data, you will not want to miss this. So cool. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, keep the flame alive.